this video, I'm going to give you a piece of chess advice that you didn't know you needed, but you do. And I'm not kidding you, I think this might be one of the most important pieces of chess advice that can be given out here. Because what I'm gonna teach you today is how to evaluate any chess position. If you've ever wondered, how can this master know that this certain position is plus 1.7 for white? Well, it's because they follow a method. And it's a method that is really important to know about, because not only will it make you be able to always know if you're better or worse, but it will also greatly improve your chess. And I truly think that the way to go from being a beginner or intermediate player to becoming an expert or even a master at chess is by becoming very good at analyzing any given chess position. And this is the way to do it. Now, before I tell you about this method, I'm gonna tell you about the sponsor of this video, which, by the way, you will not believe, because I cannot believe that they're sponsoring this video, but it's Monopoly Go. Monopoly Go is a mobile game that gets you to experience that classic Monopoly environment in a more dynamic and accessible way. It has the same fundamentals of collecting properties, building houses and hotels, pulling chance cards, going to jail, and of course, earning that Monopoly money. However, Monopoly Go offers a more dynamic experience as the cities you build and adventures you go on come to life. Some of these adventures? Literally organizing bank heists against your friends and stealing their Monopoly money. You can create the city of your dreams by unleashing the architect within you, at the same time as you get to play with your friends and family, or just with fellow players all across the world. The best part? You can get your classic Monopoly experience in a short but sweet session that can last anything between 5 and 15 minutes. You also don't need to pack up after the game is done. The game also becomes a lot more lively as famous characters such as Mr. M. Scotty and Miss Monopoly come to life. It's a vibrant Monopoly universe that is new, yet timeless. There is also endless variety and new content, as there are constantly limited time events that last only a few minutes. If you want to earn big in-game rewards, you can also sign up to co-op events where you and your friends can team up to build and get in-game rewards. The possibilities are endless, so start playing Monopoly Go today and dominate the board. You can download the game with my link or scan the QR code on the screen. Somewhere. Thank you so much, Monopoly Go, for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to the chess fundamentals. So the method that is extremely important to know, and I want you all to open up your ears, write it down, do whatever you want with it, but it's literally the best piece of chess advice that I've ever gotten, both from my parents and from my coach, because you probably didn't know this, but I actually had a coach when I was growing up. It wasn't just my grandmaster parents teaching me. That's a different story. Listen carefully. To be able to evaluate any given chess position and always know who is better or who is worse, and kind of have like an eval bar inside your brain, you have to know this following method of analyzing. There are 5 different things that you need to think about in every chess position that you want to evaluate, and you need to think about them in a certain order. It's an order of importance. Just like in mathematics, you have PEMDAS or whatever it is that you got taught in school. I got taught PEMDAS with parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division. Okay, I'm not doing this. Yeah, I got taught that. This is the chess version of it. And you can call it KMPPS. I don't know how this sounds, but that is the first letter for each component. Okay, so to analyze any chess position, the first thing that you need to think about, which is the most important thing in any given chess position, the king safety. If your king is not safe, you're getting checkmated. Doesn't matter if you're a queen up, if you're a rook up, if you're getting checkmated, the game is over. The most important thing is always king safety. After king safety, the most important thing is material. As long as your king is not getting checkmated, if you're up material, then you're probably going to be better. Especially if we're talking about a big material advantage, such as being up a piece or being up a rook or a queen or even 2-3 pawns. The only time this becomes a little bit murky is if we're talking about just one pawn, as one pawn can sometimes not be enough for this to be a material advantage, but we will go more into depth about that later. After material, the most important thing is piece activity. If your pieces are not active, then what are you doing with your pieces? I mean, the chess pieces are kind of like the organs of the body. If your heart is not working, then you're running into a lot of health issues. So with piece activity, I basically mean your pieces being able to function at their utmost ability, like having a beautiful knight in the center of the board dominating it, or having your rooks being able to move around and stuff like that. We will also get into that a little bit later. After piece activity, the most important thing is pawn structure. And this is one that I think a lot of people at lower levels forget about, but it's very important because your pawn structure is typically what's going to determine, I think that's the word, the endgame. Pawn structures are really important. If you have a lot of weak pawns, then you might lose them. And if you lose them, then one, you're running into number 2, material. You're going to be down material, which is bad. But also in endgames, might just be detrimental. It might be the reason you lose the whole game. So pawn structures are very important. And finally, the last thing to analyze is space advantage. What do I mean with that? Well, if you are pushing your opponent back so that they don't have a lot of space and they're kind of, at home, not being able to really move, then their pieces are probably not going to have a lot of mobility, which means that you're going to have the initiative in the game. And initiative is very important in chess. So if you can remember these 5 things in that specific order, you will forever be able to analyze who is better in a chess position. And we're going to be doing that now. I'm going to be showing you examples of each so that you really get this knowledge into you. But this is truly, I think, one of the most important pieces of chess advice that I have gotten. And I think the reason a lot of people improve at chess, this is a huge way of improving if you really start studying this. In this position, there's a lot of things that are going on. And this is from one of my games against someone online a few days ago. But we can see here that to know who is better, we need to follow the method. You can pause the video here if you want to and try to guess who is better. And let me know in the comments down below if you think black is better or white is better. But this is a very difficult position to evaluate, and you truly need to go through all the steps to understand, what the evaluation is. So let's go ahead and do it together. Number 1 thing, king safety. What king is safer? So we can see that black's king does have, the famous little triangle of pawns in front of it. Either a pawn structure like this or like this is the perfect pawn structure in front of the king. So in that sense, this king is safer than this one because this king, has an open file in front of it. We can see that there's no pawns, but the difference here is that white has a lot of pieces that are right now attacking this king. This pawn right here is trying to exchange itself for one of the king's defenders. This pawn might be coming up. We're lacking a black squared bishop, which is, one of the most important pieces to defend a lot of times here. So there's a lot of things that are going on. And because of that, because white has all of these pieces that are attacking this king, black's king is the more unsafe one. White definitely in this position has a safer king. So that's the number 1 thing. White's king is safer. So black is right now in a lot of trouble. But we're going to go ahead and go through all of the things. So number 1, okay, black's king is more unsafe. All right, this is a big issue. What about material? Okay, so material over here, we can see that it's black to move right now. And this pawn on d3 is hanging. So if black plays a move, such as rook takes d3, which is the move that I did, black is going to be a pawn up. Okay, so basically, black has a more unsafe king, but black is a pawn up. Okay, the king is still the biggest issue here, but, at least we're getting something. All right, So let's go then to the third point, piece activity. So we can see here actually that both white and black have pretty active pieces. I would say that white has a really active queen, white has a pretty active bishop, but actually the other pieces are not that active. So this rook, this bishop is really bad because it's stuck, it's behind this wall of pawns. This rook is not doing much right now. So even though this queen and this bishop are right now pretty active, I would say that black has more active pieces. Why? Because this rook is just completely dominating the d file. The other rook is going to be able to get really active. This bishop is right now preventing white from ever exchanging rooks on the d file. And, you know, this knight can go up to a lot of places. I would definitely say that black's pieces here in this position are better than white's. So, but I wouldn't say by a big margin. So, what is the situation? Okay, black's king is more unsafe, but black has an extra pawn and black has more active pieces. All right, let's remember all of this. What about pawn structure? If we look at this pawn structure, then I think it's very clear that black has a better pawn structure. I mean, the way you typically look at pawn structures is by seeing how many weaknesses the opponent has. And weaknesses in pawn structures are typically, first and foremost, doubled pawns. Double pawns are bad because they cannot connect to each other. Pawns are the happiest when they are connected to each other, just like here. These pawns are connected, so these pawns are very happy because it's sort of a chain that's very difficult to break through. To break through this chain, you have to eliminate these two pawns, and that is something that's very difficult as it's the pawns that are closest to black's starting rank. So very difficult. This pawn chain is amazing. This pawn chain is amazing too. They're connected, they're great. And we can also see here that black only has 2 pawn islands. What does that mean? Well, once again, it means pawns that are connected to each other. So this is one pawn island, as all of these pawns have the ability to connect to each other if they want. And this is a pawn island because all the pawns are next to each other and can connect to each other too. However, white has, one pawn island. You can maybe even consider it as being 2 pawn islands. But basically like 1 pawn island, 2 pawn islands, 3 pawn islands, 4 pawn islands. So white has double the amount of pawn islands. And this is a big problem because this means, because white has so many weak pawns, I, as black, already know that if I trade queens, I am winning this game. That is just a straight up fact. If I trade queens, this endgame is winning for me because it will be impossible for white to defend all of these pawns with their pieces. And that is the problem with having so many pawn islands, that you must defend the pawns with pieces instead of with other pawns. And that means that the pieces get stuck defending these pawns, and then you are able to just, do whatever you want. You have all the free time in the world because all of your opponent's pieces are just stuck behind these pawns defending them. And if the opponent loses the pawns, they lose the game. You cannot, an endgame where you're 2-3 pawns up is winning. It's just straight up winning. So let me know if you ever want me to do a video about how you win that, but it's just straight up winning. So pawn structure here is by far the biggest advantage that black has. A pawn, okay, 1 extra pawn, but the pawn structure together with the extra pawn in material means that all endgames are going to be completely winning for black. And let's also go ahead and check out another thing. One thing that does need to be noted, and maybe I should have covered this in material, is that white does have the bishop here, which is something that is quite good. Black has a bishop and a knight. It is typically preferable to have a bishop here, but in this position, I would say that because of white's pretty bad piece activity with this bishop, it doesn't really matter that much that they have this bishop here. In fact, I would almost be more scared of white having a knight here because of the fact that white is attacking the king so much, and a knight here would be preferable in terms of attacking because maybe a knight could jump, up over here somehow. And a knight is a great attacking piece. And last and foremost, let's look at space advantage, okay? Space advantage, I would definitely say that white is slightly better. Black is definitely on the defensive side. We can see that all of these pawns have been able to push pretty far up, which in its turn has led to this king not having that much protection. But because black doesn't have any way of attacking this king, it doesn't really matter that much. So here, I would definitely say that space advantage-wise, white is better. The problem with that, though, could be that, the pawns that have been pushed so much could become a little bit weak. But yeah, it's definitely black that is on the defensive side. So by analyzing all of these different factors, and this is something that with practice you can do in just like a few seconds in your head. You don't have to go through this for 5 minutes like I did now. But when you think about all of these things, what's going to happen is that you're going to gain a better understanding of what's going on. And that is going to lead you to understand what your next move should be and what your plans are going to be. So me, after having analyzed all of this, I am realizing as black that if I am able to survive the checkmate, if I am able to protect my king, I will win this game, pretty much. Because almost any other factor is better for black. At least all the important ones: material, piece activity, pawn structure, those big ones that come over space advantage, all of those big ones are preferable for black. So if black is just able to not get checkmated, then black is going to be better. But still, white does have the number one thing that is really important, and that is that white has a safer king and black has an unsafe king. So this is still a dangerous position for black. You need to survive this. This means that this will require a little bit of, calculation on how to defend this king as good as possible. Now, what this also means is that white needs to play in a very precise way. White needs to play in a very precise way to be able to gain any sort of advantage because of having that, because of being attacking this king. So with all of this in mind, I would actually say that the position is around equal. Which sounds crazy, but an equal position does not always mean that it's a draw. I would say that this position is around equal because of the fact that white has this one thing that weighs so much, which is that white is really attacking black's king and black has a very unsafe king. But because black has all of these other things, it kind of, gives that good base for black. And that is why I would say that this is actually around equal. Which, if we look at the evaluation, that is actually what the evaluation thinks too. But white needs to play very precisely here to be able to keep that equality. If white doesn't do that, then actually white is just going to be lost. And that is what happened in this game. So you can try to guess what the best move for white is here. I'll give you like a couple seconds because I am impatient. Okay, now that you've thought about it, white's best move is to go h5 and to bring another piece to the attack. The only thing white has is an attack, and white needs to bring every single piece possible into it. So going h5, this would lead to quite a scary situation for me. And probably what I would need to do is something like rook d6 and try to defend. But after rook d6, we can see that after white is able to bring out, its pieces, actually now it's going to be a lot easier for white to get a lot of good piece activity because it's black that's sort of having to limit the movement of its pieces because it needs to defend everything. And then we're going to see here that white is going to gain both, the better king safety, but also the much better piece activity. And it's going to kind of, weigh down on black's position. So this would be the best continuation here. However, my opponent, who was rated almost 2200, did not do this because I don't think this is that simple. In fact, my opponent went f6 here, which is a move that looks very natural. But now, this is actually just completely winning for me, pretty much, because my opponent is giving me this square for my knight. So the reason my opponent went here was because they wanted to checkmate me, but I immediately saw that by doing this, I am actually going to be getting even better piece activity because my knight is now going to have this fantastic square. So even though it looks very scary, I actually now have a great route for my knight. So I went knight d8, and after queen up, I went knight e6, and now I just have a rock solid position where my opponent is going to struggle a lot into being able to create any other kind of attack towards my king. And now, if I just simply capture on c3, I'm going to be 2 pawns up, better pawn structure, better everything, and my opponent doesn't really have an attack. The only thing they can try to do is something like h5, but I literally do not even need to be scared. I can just do almost anything I want. There is not really any way of proceeding here after this. This knight is just so strong. And with the rook over here, preventing the rook from coming up, very, very, very strong. Still need to be careful and still need to, make sure I don't blunder a checkmate, because this would be very scary. But if I'm just careful here, there's nothing, nothing to be afraid of. So with this example, I hope that I'm able to give you some sort of idea. I could do this for an hour. I could show you a million examples. But if you want to try to improve, try to bring up a chess position, maybe in one of your games, and analyze it and go through the whole method. And then after going through the whole method, try to guess what the evaluation of the position is. And after that, check with an engine to see if you're right and try to understand why you're right and why you're not. I hope that this was helpful for you. I hope that you learned something. And, no matter what, I really do think that knowing about this way of thinking about chess is really going to help you in your games. So thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know if you want to see more instructional videos like this. And thank you so much, Monopoly Go, for sponsoring the video as well. Don't forget, once again, to check out the link in the description box down below. All right, have a great one, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!